The future of Kansas City baseball is in good hands as the Royals have locked up Bobby Witt Jr. to a long-term contract extension worth a lot of money. We're going to talk about it in just a second.
This is KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank.
What is up, guys? Welcome into a live edition of One Royal Way. Jordan Foote, Josh Keiser, Joel Penfield here. Mostly live, mostly very recent immediate reaction to the Royals, putting the thing on the table and going out there and offering some money, stepping up. Bobby Witt Jr., 11-year, $288.8 million contract extension. Jeff Passan tweeted that out. Boys, we can go over everything else, but starting with Joel, immediate thoughts and kind of how are the vibes?
So for a little bit of context, I'm not in my normal space if you're watching live. I'm in a conference room at my office right now because I heard some things. Maybe this could happen. I don't know when. Like it might come, any day. But I decided to come into the office today because I didn't think much of it. Of course, massive news breaks when I'm not anywhere near my actual setup. I saw the Passan tweet, and once I checked and saw that it wasn't Jet Passan or a bot account, I literally jumped out of my chair at my cubicle. I lost my mind there for a second. I'm fired up. This is exactly what this city needed. This is exactly what the Royals needed. They put an awesome stamp on what I think has been a very successful offseason with locking up the face of the franchise for at least 7 years, if not longer. I couldn't be more excited for what this season is going to bring. Expectations are changing pretty quick for what this team could be when you have a guy like this locked up.
Yep, 100%. Josh?
I interrupted my workout, my daily workout. My personal health is suffering, not only because I'm missing this workout, but my blood pressure right now. My heart is absolutely bumping. I cannot be more excited about this move. Maybe my favorite part about this, we can get to this in a little bit, but I am very, very excited about this.
It's monumental. It is huge. So again, 11 years, $288.8 million. Opt-outs after years 7, 8, 9, and 10. No trade clause. The signing bonus is $7,777,777. Seems pretty obvious why they did that.
The 288.7 is just perfect. You get that little bit on the end,
Yeah. Club option after the 11th season, so that can escalate another 3 years and $89 million, bringing the whole value to like $14,377. This is a huge deal, easily the biggest in Royals history. Passan tweeted or reported some stuff, obviously discussions going on for months. He wanted to make sure that they were making efforts to win. They sure made efforts to win, at least more than they did last season. So Bobby Witt Jr. tweeted immediately after the news, "I'm incredibly grateful to the Sherman family and the Royals front office for believing in me, and I promise to do everything in my power to help bring championship baseball back to Kansas City. Let's go." That sums it up.
Can I do this? Let's go.
I was a little worried when you stepped away from the desk. I was like, what's Josh going to do?
Josh is celebrating on a Monday.
I think it's worth it. The biggest thing that I took away from this early on is credit to John Sherman. A ton of credit needs to go there because there has been, I think, a ton of criticism, and I think some of it was fair the first few years of his ownership, that it just felt like we kind of got a David Glass type again that was just going to kind of let things ride, not spend a ton of money, try and develop everything from within, do the small market baseball, quote unquote, stuff. And to give out a 9-figure contract like this to a guy going into his age 24 season, locking up a guy that turned himself into a superstar at the back half of last season, it's a huge deal and shows that this isn't just a cry poor small market baseball type owner. He said, we're going to spend when we feel the time is right. And they've shown it the offseason with the free agents that they got. And now you give a 9-figure deal to your superstar. A lot of credit needs to go there.
And I think coming into the offseason, we mentioned it and it was very evident. I mean, it was obvious if you wanted a yes vote on this new stadium, the one thing that you can do that will go farthest in this fan base is to sign Bobby Witt Jr. to that, it's probably very likely going to be a career in Kansas City type of contract he's got plenty of opt-outs. We can address that too. But the one thing that they can absolutely secure a yes vote, I think, is going to be extending Bobby Witt Jr. They came out and did it after they signed. They made plenty of moves. They spent plenty of money this offseason, but the criticism was still very fair that this is just a short-term thing, that they're just trying to convince the fan base that they're going to spend money, wink, wink, but really they're going to do this all over again. And I think this not only goes a long way to shoring up and securing fan base support for that new stadium, but it's actually something that we can substantially hang our hat on as far as thinking that this organization is a different organization with a different owner, a different mindset, a different front off organizational philosophy. And I think that is where I am most encouraged by the direction of this, not only this organization, but this town, this city, this fan base. It's all up arrows for sure.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think looking at the specifics of it and the structure of this deal, it's kind of eerily similar to the guy across the Truman Sports Complex in that you link him up to this long-term deal. It looks like, and I think I saw Lesky just tweeted, like if those last 3 years get hit, they'll be renegotiated. Like this seems like let's get something on paper that kind of signifies the commitment, gets everything set in place, and then we'll see where we are in, let's say, 5-6 years. We'll revisit, we'll get this going. And the opt-outs kind of go along with that. And Passon put in his article, quote, Witt intends to remain with the Royals long past the first 7 years. Now, obviously, a lot can change between now and then. This franchise could be a 500 club for those first 7 years. He could get tired of it. There could be, a 100th percentile outcome where they compete for a World Series in those 7 years. Like everything can change. Getting it, like Joel said, this was just a big move to show that you did care and that this was real. You did want to keep him long-term. Like Josh and I last season and even the year before, we joked like, hey, man, this franchise, if you want to get some value recouped, then trading Bobby Witt Jr. is the number one way to do that. I mostly joking, 90-something% joking.
I don't think Josh
maybe
was joking. You might need to atone for the sins of that right now.
I'd be happy to.
You want to do that?
I'd be happy to defend that.
Yes, and you won't have a chance to see it come true now because there's a no trade clause in that contract.
Yeah, I did preface that with if they cannot get an extension done with Bobby Witt Jr., then they need to start looking to trade him immediately. And the logic is absolutely sound. I will never apologize for being right, but I might actually apologize. I'm kind of like that, but the fact that they did get this extension done completely nullifies my sins. It's incredible. I think we also need to hit these opt-outs pretty hard because I think that is a primary and main reason why this deal got done in the first place. You don't get that amount of years without tagging on a lot of opt-outs, both for the player and for the club. And I thought both of those opt-outs are interesting if we want to jump into those.
Yeah, no, 100%. And that's a good time to bring up this question for Wildman00. Is it realistically a 6-year deal for him since he can opt out after the 7th year? We'll kick it back to Joel. Do you have any immediate thoughts on the opt-out situation?
I mean, I think that's the minimum threshold, that he's going to be here through at least his age 30 season, which would be 2030. That's the floor where this contract starts.
Yep.
And then after that, it can just build. And a lot of it, I think, is going to be dependent on, can the Royals win? And do they win in this window? And I'm not necessarily talking World Series. You know how hard it is for them to get there. But are you a consistent contender in the playoffs? Are you at least making a run every once in a while, over the next few years to incentivize a guy like that to stay, especially if he plays well and the team is winning? With this type of contract, and it can get renegotiated, he'll want to stay around. You may be able to put that seal on his chest, that you have with Salvador Perez probably out of the fold, here in the next couple of years, and you keep that guy around. It would not I guess I kind of have both ends of the spectrum here, where I would not be shocked if Bobby Witt Jr. decides after 7 years, you know what, I'm going to go and see if I can go and, turn that 3 into a 4 for the last, 8 to 10 years of my major league career at 30 years old. I also wouldn't be shocked if he is kind of just has the mentality of, I want to build something here in Kansas City. That's where I want my legacy to be. I want to play for one team, and I'll play here through my age 37 season, which is the length that the full 14-year contract goes, and build something here with maybe a ring or two to go with it.
Well, I completely agree. I think that's important. And like I said, the opt-outs are a big deal about this. And then there's always going to be that fun, will he or won't he opt out after he's got 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th opt-out seasons. That's a lot. And I think that is how this deal got done, is adding those. But then there's that 3-year option for the club afterwards. I think, is it going to be the 35, 36, 37-year-old season? Does that add up
that
to you
sounds
guys?
Right. Yeah.
So there's going to be plenty of, I don't know, upside in this deal for the club as well. You keep your franchise cornerstone in the city with a new stadium, and he's your guy for the long term. And it also keeps them in the business of competing.
Yeah.
You don't want Bobby Witt Jr. to opt out in any of those times. So obviously the organization is going to keep adding, trying to stay in the thick of it and keep going into contention with Bobby Witt Jr. on the roster just to make him happy. And vis-a-vis, that should also keep the fans happy. They should be trying. They're not only trying to get Bobby Witt's buy-in, they're trying to get the fans buy-in, trying to get everybody's buy-in to them contending. And that is a good cheese for the organization to have to follow.
We have gotten 11 minutes into this podcast, 11 and a half minutes, and we haven't even brought up or questioned or considered, and this isn't me implying it, that is this worth it for Bobby Witt Jr.? And it's because he caught fire so much last season from July 1st to the end of the year, /310, 351, 578, 145 weighted runs created plus. He was absolutely phenomenal. Everyone believes that's going to be who he is. And that if I knocked myself out there for a second. What the heck?
Oh no.
If that's not who he is, that's what I get for tabbing over. I have like 15 different things open. He's going to be a clear star level player, superstar level player. The projections, he's young, he plays the premium position, he has the intangibles. Like everything is aligning for him to be worth this deal. And yes, Brant Ritter got to keep the on base percentage improving. 6.1 walk percentage down that stretch that I just mentioned. I think that has some room to grow to like 8%, 9%, which for him got to be perfectly fine. It's just an insane development. I just didn't think that they would pony up that much, even if, some of it's just fun money that looks on paper. I'm just kind of shocked. You looked at other deals. Fernando Tatis was like, 14 for 340. I think J-Rod, his structure was always unique in how it was going to be set up. Corbin Carroll, Ronald Acuna on the lower end, but also 8-year deals. So I'm just surprised it happened. And I thought that it was going to eventually, but going from Sunday night, a report that they're going to resume talks and nothing is imminent. Nothing is going to happen soon, but they're trying again to, for lack of a better phrase, holy shit, it's done. That was a very quick development. So I know that doesn't provide a good segue, but that's kind of where I'm at.
One of my main takeaways by this too is this deal feels like it strikes the right balance of player friendly, team friendly. Like you have a long deal where, and not necessarily team friendly in the sense of like the Salvador Perez 8 years for $13.5 million or whatever the heck his first deal was. Like not team friendly that way, but you keep your guy for a long time. The AAV is not astronomical, like Shohei Ohtani, 70 million AAV, something like that. It's, I think AAV on SpotRack, it has it at like 26 and a quarter over the length of the deal. Now that's going to get moved around a little bit once we get like the salary type thing, once we get the full salary breakdown. And Bobby has the opportunity to, he gets his 7 years of, more than league minimum now that he's going to be making a lot more than that. And he has his opportunities to go and test free agency, so there's the team friend, the player friendly aspect, or he just has the security of an 11 to 14 million or a 14-year deal where he gets to kind of build his legacy with one team. And if Bobby Witt Jr. plays his whole career in Kansas City, there's a statue and no one else is going to wear number 7. I think it's as plain as that with the type of player he is. It's substantial for not just him, but for the franchise. the Royals don't do this, and I don't think we've talked about that enough. I might have mentioned it in my opening little monologue, but we've watched so many talented players walk out the door after 6 years. And that the Royals have basically operated with that assumption of we have this guy for his rookie contract and we're not going to be able to do anything about it. After that, good luck to you. And I hope that you always remember your time in Kansas City. The Royals have a chance the Royals took their opportunity to go, we're not going to let that happen anymore. We're not letting this guy walk out the door. I was saying that 2 years ago on this podcast, even when his rookie year, underwhelming, however you wanted to look at it. You cannot let this guy walk out the door. He is too talented. He is too good. His ceiling is too high to let that happen. And the Royals aren't letting him do it, at least for the short term. And the long term, maybe he is here for that.
I want to walk you through my Sunday night when we started talking about those rumors. And I also need to shout out Brant Ritter. We'll talk. There's another great comment he had earlier, but William Baker commented in the chat here that he thought the John Heyman rumor was BS, and John Heyman has a reputation that it is, I don't know, not completely true or a little bit off or just kind of weird.
You're like, okay, John. A lot of sourcing. We'll put it that way.
Yeah. So who knows how credible it was? That was where my mentality was. And then I was like, well, maybe, this is pretty smoky. Maybe there's some fire here, but there's no way it's going to be like a, 11-year extension or 14 years, just, out of this world. But I'm probably thinking they're probably just going to buy out his ARB years and then mark it up as an extension. I was like, if that happens, I'm going to be so sad. That's going to be the worst. And then I started to think about it more. And I tweeted something just similarly to this, but Brant Ritter kind of put it, classic Royals stealing spotlight from the Chiefs during the Super Bowl week. And that is essentially what I tweeted. It would be just so huge if we kicked off Super Bowl week for the Chiefs with a Bobby Witt Jr. extension news. And here we are, boys, on a Monday afternoon. Here we are living the literal dream of the Kansas City sports direction of these organizations are going up. And I'm just so happy right now.
The vibes are great. You kick off Super Bowl week last night with Taylor Swift winning multiple Grammys. You get a Bobby Witt Jr. extension, and then you're going to get a Lombardi trophy next Sunday. It's a pretty good life right now in Kansas City.
And the women's soccer stadium and Sporting is coming to Arrowhead. KU, for those who care, I know I care, is going to be going to Arrowhead.
It's
in the
a couple
fall.
Years down the road with the World Cup.
The World Cup had huge news. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Kansas City, baby.
It's insane. And I'm running out of stuff to say about it. I just think I'm surprised that the numbers were what they were. I'm surprised the timing was what it was. It's just huge for the Royals to back the Brinks truck up like that and just say, hey, you're our guy. And there are other players that are extension candidates and going to be extension eligible, and we'll have conversations with the Royals and stuff. But this is the face of the franchise. And if you're a fan of the Fangraphs, WAR valuation, and they convert it to, if you're worth this many wins above replacement, you're worth this much money. He's worth $53 million last year. So they're going to get their money's worth on this contract, especially with how young he is, especially with how motivated he is to win, how much defensively he improved last season, which I think that's overshadowed by his offensive improvement. And it's still just as impressive, really. You're like, oh my gosh, this guy is now one of the best defensive shortstops in baseball. After I watched him the year before, it was like, I don't know. And usually guys, they don't always take that long to get going, or the improvement isn't as drastic. So he checked off every box along the way. Josh, I know you have a point about JJ Piccolo as well.
Yeah. It was made a point. I saw it float around a little bit on Twitter last night, really, that there are no really big contracts out after 2025 season. Seth Lugo was a 15-year or $15 million contract that year, that 2025 season. But other than that, they're kind of not on the hook for anybody beyond that. And that kind of, when I started my workout, I should say a walk this afternoon, I kind of started to think maybe that's an indicator that JJ has until 2025 to start showing some solid direction for this organization. And that was really all that he was going to be able to shell out. So as I was building that point, the Bobby Witt Jr., smoke started kind of popping in my head. I was like, well, even then, well, depending on how the extension is going to be, he is the one guy that an owner could be like, if we can get him signed, that's a green light no matter what. So I think that is also credit to John Sherman, but we need to give some credit to JJ Piccolo in this situation, because maybe that is true that Bobby Witt Jr. is the only green light extendable player right now, and he got it done. That is the bottom line. He got that extension done. Does Dayton Moore get that extension done? Who knows? But are we still here talking about JJ Piccolo is Dayton Moore 2.0? There's still plenty of things that JJ has to put on the field, and success is not guaranteed just because Bobby Witt Jr. extended, obviously. But can we kind of put that to bed a little bit further, at least for a whole season?
Yeah, I think so.
I think we can. It was kind of annoying from the start. They're two different people, and because they're in the same organization and one worked under the other to start, you're like, oh, okay, it's going to be the same thing. And that was just a natural way, especially like you can't really blame people with how the Royals were operating before that or during that, and where the direction of the franchise was headed. I think so. Again, two different people, two different methods of operation, and really something that ended up panning out in a big way. And I think you'd be hard pressed to find somebody right now that isn't a big fan of this contract. I haven't really been perusing Twitter for obvious reasons, but that's the biggest thing in a month that pitchers and catchers are reporting, a month that other stuff is going to happen, like the hype for the season is beginning. This just blows it all out of the water. I think it's insane.
Mark Feinsand just kind of laid out the structuring of the contract as far as like annual value. So this year's the $2 million, next year's $7 million, 2026 is 13, 2027 is 19, which is pretty, that's pretty close to what he would probably be earning in arbitration those years, I would think. And then 2028 takes a jump to 30, 2029 is 35, 2030 is 35 as well. So you start to hit the prime of, those theoretical prime years of Bobby Witt Jr., and the price starts to escalate. So, I mean, the structuring of that is also very good, but now we got numbers to the actual dollars and cents. So I was kind of curious if they were going to get that, how they were going to kind of load that. They have plenty, like we mentioned, there's plenty of room beyond 2025 to incorporate a big contract like that, but there's still, I mean, $13 in $13 million in 2026, 19 in 2027, 30 in 2028. I mean, that's all that's still manageable, especially even in a small market team. So
this is an interesting point from Brady Vaughn in the chat. He's saying allegedly Bobby Witt Jr.'s extension is the third largest contract in MLB history if all options are exercised. It goes Shohei at $700 million, and then you got Mike Trout 425, and then Bobby.
It's a lot of money and good company.
Just off the top of my head, I think it would end up being fourth, because I think if all of Julio's options are exercised and he hits a couple of the incentives, it gets up over 400. But regardless, this is, if all options are exercised right now, it's a top 5 contract in the history of the sport for a Kansas City Royal, because this is a contract that you would think, all the people that joke in the chats and comments on social media of, dubbing Bobby or photoshopping Bobby Witt Jr. in like a Dodger or a Yankee uniform. Like, that's put to bed for now, because the Royals are the ones that actually shelled out the money to give him for that.
Yeah, it's insane. And the Royals, I'm not going to preclude them from making any other moves. We're going to talk a little bit about other extension candidates, perhaps, and then spring training. Something else is coming up right around the corner. That'll be up after this break.
We appreciate you supporting KC Sports Network by listening to our podcast. You have helped us become the highest ranked Chiefs podcast network in 2022 and 2023. And don't forget about our daily Substack newsletter, the best written analysis you can find on the Chiefs straight to your inbox every day. kcsn.substack.com.
Welcome back in One Royal Away podcast here. Jordan Foote, Joel Penfield, Josh Keiser, got the whole crew. Should have let off with this, brought to you by Kansas City Strength and Conditioning, the premier baseball development resource in Kansas City. You can bet your ass they're happy that Bobby Witt Jr. is going to be around for a long time, and the Kansas City Royals are giving people more of a reason to watch. So a guy, really multiple guys that kind of fall in the subcategory, the sub tier, and that's not an insult to them. It's Bobby Witt Jr. versus insert any player on the team.
Yeah.
Vinny Pasquantino MJ Melendez. That one probably gets a little bit weird with the vibes and the projections. And then Michael Garcia. I think those three, you could lump in a Cole Reagans, a
That was the guy I
Brady
thought
Singer. That five, I think. Maybe Chris Bubich, that, again, iffy because he's been hurt. You don't know what you have with him. Those guys all fall into, I think, they are extension monitoring, and probably, I think, Vinny Pasquantino at the top of that list.
Yeah, I think Vinny is the top of the list. If he can stay healthy this year, which is the big key, he was never really fully recovered from the shoulder thing that happened in 22. So it was something that he didn't have any sort of surgery for. It, re-aggravated, and obviously he missed all of last season. If he's fully healthy, he's going to be an all-star this year. Like, I feel very, very strongly about that. And if you get that type of guy this year out of him, I think you extend him. It's not going to be as lucrative because he's a first base only DH type, but you can buy out 3 or 4 years probably from him, and he'll want to stick around. Michael Garcia to me is super intriguing because he's not a third base, like a traditional third baseman, but he's great defensively. He showed a knack to hit. If you've seen his swing looks noticeably different in the Venezuelan Winter League where he played this year. It looks like he's getting a little more loft on the ball. Looks like he's driving the ball a little bit more. Like, he was hitting home runs out there that aren't cheapies. And he hit a couple this year where even I was like, okay, there's not a lot of power there, but there's something there. If he takes a leap, not even a Bobby Witt Jr. type leap, but just a leap from where he is, I think he could be a sneaky candidate for it as well. He's just from a family perspective, like Alcides Escobar spent a lot of time in his career here. He knows what winning baseball looks like here, which means he's also cousins with Ronald Acuna Jr., who took a team-friendly, albeit insulting, contract that the Braves offered him. But that seemed like that family kind of takes that sort of, they can take that sort of contract and be like, hey, we just want to stick around here, and it's life-changing money for us. I think he would be an intriguing deal. And then Cole Reagans. If Cole Reagans continues to build on what he did this past year, proves he is a one. Like, he's a true one in this rotation. You lock that guy up and buy out a couple of years if you can.
I am hesitant about the Cole Reagans part. I mean, obviously I love the fact that he was so lights out towards the second half of the year last year, put together more seasons in Kansas City healthy than he did in Texas as a starter, where in Texas he was a reliever. So he was just, something was different when he came to Kansas City, and that is huge. And if you think that is sustainable, great. I think that personally, if I was the one signing the checks, I probably would want to see it a little bit more, maybe another year, and then see how that arm holds up. Because, I mean, we got 2 Tommy Johns and nothing about an eye out. So I think that is kind of a sneaky one that I'd be hesitant out, but I'd be fine with it. Garcia, I completely agree, even though I think that the value is still him being a shortstop. And if that is some value you can find, I think you can still look to trade him, in my opinion. He's obviously really good. I really like the career projection that he could potentially have, especially if these swing mechanic adjustments are real. But I just want the value, and I want that to be done in a good process way. JJ did mention that Michael Garcia, they kind of see him as one of the core untouchable guys that they want to build on. So I think that Michael Garcia is way more of a extension candidate than I'm kind of given credit for, but I'd be fine with that. Vinny obviously is the one dark horse that I think that nobody's talking about because he had such kind of an off year is Brady Singer. I think that this organization loves them some Brady Singer. He did have a slow year, but he has stretches of quality starting pitching, which is something that they cannot develop. He was the first guy that came out of that 2018 group. They obviously believed him at that time. The development of a third pitch was always going to be tied to how sustainable success he will have. And Andy Rogers was talking about him potentially working on his 4-seam and a sweeper this offseason, which is intriguing because if you can add that 4-seam with that sweeper along with the devastating sinker and the slider that he already has, I think that there could be an absolute unlocking breakout year loading for Brady Singer. And if that's the case, you extend him now and buy low, but it's also risky, obviously. So I think Brady Singer is also a very dark horse candidate for that extension.
You make a good point about buying low, and that's kind of thought process I've been going through with this. Like, if I had to rank how comfortable I would be right now picking up an extension talk or like seriously extending one of these guys, it's got to be Vinny Pasquantino. And Clinton's comment, yes, definitely next on the extension list. I think for me, potentially for the Royals, I do also think, like Wildman said, want to see him healthy for a year. Like, all of these guys has some sort of hole you can poke in their extension resume. Pasquantino's is literally just health, because I think he's proven himself. I think he's a really good hitter. I think he's fine enough defensively. I think a very good leader in the clubhouse. Like, that's going to be easy. I'm iffy as well on Cole Reagans, because you're buying in on half a really, really good season versus the rest of his career. But Josh, are you making faces at that champagne kind of going sour on you?
The fizziness just went shot straight up my nose. That's kind of what I get. I deserve it, but whatever. We're moving on.
Yeah, Reagans, I think I'm in wait and see mode. MJ Melendez, absolutely wait and see mode, because I personally just don't buy the second half improvement being that legitimate. But if that does end up being the case and he turns out to be average in left field, let's say he doesn't even have to be very good, or corner outfield, whatever, that makes him an extension candidate. Garcia, if he would have ended the year the way he started it, like he would, if he had flip-flopped that, I'd feel a little bit better. But also, again, it's one season, and you're not going to base all of that on 1 year unless you're the top prospect of the team, unless you have the pedigree, unless you were a top 5, top 10 player in baseball for half the season. Like Bobby Witt Jr., everything kind of lined up perfectly, I think, for him, to where no one is like, oh, this was a little bit premature, because I don't think it was. And I think everyone buys into him long term. Everybody else, you're like, okay, either they need to be healthy, they need to get healthy, they need to stay healthy. I need to see X, Y, and Z from them on the field. Not gonna, sell tickets as much. Like they're just not Bobby Witt Jr., and that's why this was such a no-brainer. Everyone else, you kind of have to factor in at least some bit of calculus, I think.
100%.
Another sneaky place where I think the Royals could do some extensions that wouldn't cost a lot of money would be in the bullpen. Say that John McMillan or James MacArthur goes out and has an awesome year. You can go and buy out a couple of his, like the ARB years and maybe a free agent year for that guy, which I think would be interesting. I'm not saying that they should do it or that's the course to go, but if you want to continue to lock up your core pieces and people that you think are vital to your success, and we've seen what made the Royals so good when they were winning, when they won a World Series, was how good that bullpen was and had the continuity that they had there. And you had two guys that kind of broke out in small samples of like, that's a guy that can close out games for us. It would be an interesting path. I'm not saying that that's the way to do it, but I think it could be a path you go down to solidify what you have in the bullpen.
I would push back a little bit because they're already controlled through, I think, 2029, 2028.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
Damn, that's a long time. I guess I just never did the math on that.
I guess I have
that's quite a bit.
But I totally understand your point and totally agree with it. Like that could be definitely, I need to look at where the value is regardless of who it is and where it is. And I think those are two guys that, are definitely going to be a part of the future in the short term, if not for the long term. So I don't hate the reasoning behind that. I would push back on just like how much control they already have over them and how that figures into it. I think Mike Massey could be an interesting extension candidate as well. I mean, he was one of the – yeah, I don't think he would. Right now you'd be – I mean, could you get him at 6 years, 7 years with a $10 million annual value to get him to sign that right now?
I think so.
I mean, he was already – he's one of the most unlucky players in the league last year as far as like what was actually done versus what was expected. So I think that could be, encouraging. And he was decent, if not average, for most of the part of his rookie season. And that's exactly what you want to see from a guy that you want to extend. So I think that's also a sneaky candidate to be able to lock up. But, and I mean, his best friend's with Vinny Pasquantino. So if you're able to lock up one and use it as a, hey, look what we're doing for your best friend over here, then I can't hurt, right?
Yeah, no, I think so. And all this talk about long-term, all this talk about who's going to be in Kansas City long-term, which players are going to do it, is to the coaching staff, the managerial staff, the right group for it. They're going to be eventually playing in a different ballpark. And this is something that Joel brought up before the show. Like, if there were any doubts left about what the future of Royals baseball was going to be long term once that lease at the Truman Sports Complex runs out, it's extinguished, I think, for the most part. And they had the whole veto thing, and then not so fast, and then we're going to get these people to get on board. Like, it's been a drawn out process with the stadium, but this is a telltale sign it's going to happen. The future of Royals baseball, this, like, is it the bricks that they keep tweeting out and everything? Like, the players just saying brick by brick, like this movement's going to happen, whether some people want it to or not. I'm not a Missouri resident, so it doesn't directly impact me nearly as much, but I do think that this is just almost a formality now.
It's not as simple as Bobby Witt Jr. is going to tip the scales in such a way.
Exactly.
But let's just call it what it is. This entire situation has been such a shit show that, like, it's just a disaster on both sides. People that don't want it, people that do want it. It's been awful, and that's why we haven't talked about it a ton, because it's been such a disaster. But when you have something like this, even the people that are kind of on the fence are like, well, at least they're investing in the team. And if I'm going to go watch this team in a new stadium, at least there are going to be players that I like and that are going to be there. Like, it can tip it in that direction. And there's still going to be people that are going to dissent and don't want it. And I'm not going to try and convince those people otherwise. But it feels like something like this, and not a half show, like a half measure of a contract extension of like, oh, we bought out 2 of Bobby Witt Jr.'s free agent years. Woohoo! Come to our new stadium. Like, this is an attempt by the Royals to have him here for the long haul in the first, half decade or more of that new stadium. It's a significant investment by the team to build that and go, hey, come to our stadium. Oh, and by the way, number 7 is still going to be playing shortstop for us when we're in that new ballpark.
Yeah, and they have not been able to or willing to do this with any of the players out since George Brett. I mean,
yeah,
they signed Salvi to extension, very team friendly, and then they made it right, but it was still not, franchise team payroll,
not like
handicapping
Cooperstown level player.
Yes,
yeah.
100%. So everybody's been calling for that, and I think that commitment is you can't deny that is a thing now. This is a move towards sustainability, that this is a new direction. And I can't not be encouraged by that now. So I'm in the Northland. I'm not able to vote for a new stadium one way or the other, but I would absolutely be voting yes at this point. I've seen everything that I need to see to endorse that new stadium. Can we be done with we know that billionaires should pay for their own stadiums. We know that. I mean, that is it. This is the cost of doing business for owning a major league team. It is what it is. This is not Jerry Jones in Jerry World, where everything that could be held there is held there. This is the real world where we can talk new stadiums and what it can do for a city and what it can't do for the city as well. But this is just a very fun day, and I would be absolutely voting yes for this moving forward.
Yeah, as someone who has been sitting on the fence about this, and surprised, like I do that for everything it seems, but has been notoriously just like, do what you want. I'm not voting for it. I can't vote for it. Do whatever. Let people build the stadium if they want to, get it done. I'm just kind of moving past the should it be, should it not be stage, because they're going to keep moving. That's just how life is. These things are going to keep going, whether people want them to slow down or not. Like, that train is going full speed ahead. And man, so is the Royals off season, and it's pretty much coming to a close. I wouldn't expect they had the Adam Frazier signing, obviously, that was the lefty injection into the lineup, not the one that I was expecting. But I think they're pretty much set. Like, there, ironically, are still some decent free agents out there that if they really wanted to go after someone, they could. But they're not going to make any seismic changes. This was the biggest move on the offseason. They moved on all the players they brought in and all the money they doled out and all the hype that they built. This still blows it out of the water as the biggest move. And it's both Brady Vaughn. Do you think we end up trading Massey? I just saw that while I was mid
midpoint
sentence, midpoint. Now I have to fixate on it. I don't think there's really a market for him right now, to be honest with you. But that's not an indictment on him. It's just he had a weird year where, and I sometimes make fun of expected stats, but like he was so unlucky. Like it wasn't even close. Like he's a better player than his 2023 season showed, I think. And even if he's not a future star level player, if he's just a fine second baseman, there will eventually be a market for that. But I think you'd rather he play a little bit better. Maybe you figure out your internal, what you have with Nick Lofton, someone like that. So I would say no for now. I wouldn't rule it out completely, but I also think they just want to see what Mike Massey actually has over the first couple months of the season.
And there's a little bit of an insurance policy if Massey does struggle, because you got to remember how abysmal his April was.
100%.
Like, Adam Frazier is not a great player. He's fine, like a slightly below average to average second baseman. But that's an upgrade if Michael Massey has a similar beginning to the year.
Yeah.
I just got reminded that Mizzou actually just got a $62 million gift given to their athletics department.
Yeah,
so everything's coming up, Josh.
Tucker Franklin was kind enough to send Mizzou $62 million and say, "Hey, go Tigers."
The wrong answer is
little
only
known fact
tweet that I saw that was like, "Who gave Mizzou $62 million?" And I was like, Michael Porter Jr.
Well,
oh man, Tucker messaged the chat and said the DraftKings account hit. Man, you know that Chiefs money line. They just said, you know what, Tucker, we'll give you an advance. Don't you worry, buddy.
If you're gonna make the Chiefs a dog, if you're gonna make the Chiefs a dog, you're just handing out cash.
Yeah, I know that all too well, as I was notoriously picking against the Chiefs. 1 point losses back-to-back weeks, but I'm no longer that stupid.
I'll say, are you going back to that well on Sunday?
It's Brock Purdy and Patrick Mahomes. San Fran has a more talented team on paper, definitely a more talented offense, but like you could argue the Chiefs defense is not even, like, I don't even know if there's an argument to be made that San Fran's defense is better. They have some star talent. They have good players. I know this is a baseball podcast, but
yeah, get out of here. What are we doing? This is February 5th from moving forward is the Bobby Witt Jr. Day. It's a national holiday or Kansas City holiday. What are we talking about here? We got Kansas City Sports Network has so many Chiefs shows. We're not going to be one of them. We only have to talk about one thing, and they are the thing to talk about in Kansas City right now. Bobby Witt Jr. is going to be a Royal for at least 7 years.
It's huge. Spring training, again, right around the corner. Bobby Witt Jr. going to be at spring training with his fresh contract. I believe February 14th is the report date for pitchers and catchers, and then the 19th. If I remember correctly, is like the full squad, everyone getting going. So it's coming up, man. None of us will be down there, unfortunately, but we're going to be following. We're going to do, I hope, some sort of primer for it and kind of what we're looking for. And then we'll jump right into season predictions. We'll jump into reacting on a more normal basis to how the 2024 season unfolds. And the Royals have given people reasons for optimism. And I think we went over a few shows ago, like a knee-jerk win projection for the 2024 campaign. None of us are expecting playoffs. I think that'd be very premature and kind of you're putting the cart before the horse there with the moves they've made. But with the moves they have done, they're going to be better than they were last season. This should be the bridge year. I think that 2023 was supposed to be. And this is another good move. And again, locking up Bobby Witt Jr. isn't going to translate to necessarily more wins and losses this year because he was going to be there anyway. But you're looking ahead. You have something to look forward to. The Royals are going to undergo a ton of changes still. Things are going to be different. Bobby Witt Jr., barring anything crazy, he's going to be there. And he has the no trade clause. The opt-outs are a whole nother jar of worms. So I think it was a huge day. And I think it unfolded a little bit differently structure-wise than I anticipated, but still no qualms at all with how that contract kind of came out.
Super excited. Something that we didn't necessarily expect, or at least to be structured the way it was, but this is a massive day for the Royals now and for the next few years.
You gave me a question, like a 1 to 10 rating coming into the offseason. How likely did I think it was that the Royals were going to extend Bobby Witt Jr.? I would have been very comfortable saying a 2.
Yeah.
Knowing that we're here now is just so insanely beyond what I thought was going to happen this offseason. And we're here now. And this is the reality we live in. So let's hope this is how it is moving forward. And cheers to everybody watching.
100%. All right, we're going to get out of here. It was a fun one. Royals, absolutely insane day locking up Bobby Witt Jr. again. Thank you to Josh and Joel for being quick and improvising. Thank you to Tucker for producing. We're going to try to get back next week, I hope, with a pre-spring training show. I'm optimistic about that. So until then, we'll talk at you later.